Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Seychelle Van Poel.
And I'm Wendy Papazan. And today, Seychelle and I are spitballing a little bit here. Yeah. We're going to be talking about how to do hard things, because frankly, it's been a tough year for both of us. These last,
I was gonna say, it's actually been like a tough
year.
2.5 years, really.
Yeah, really 3 years for me.
True.
I know 3 years ago, some of you know my story, but 3 years ago, my real estate team started to fall apart. And there's a lot of reasons for it. There's not one reason. There's a lot of reasons. But ultimately, they all have to do with me, because I was the leader at the time. Well, I'm still the leader. Mm-hmm. And in the course of just a few months, 26 people left my team. It got to be so that I had PTSD anytime anybody wanted to have a conversation with me, because I was pretty sure that they were going to tell me that they were leaving. And, honestly, it was hard for me. I think I was telling this to someone the other day. It was really hard because it was the collective trauma of all those people leaving. And everybody had their own reasons for leaving, and they were all legitimate. And I feel like I didn't deserve the collective trauma, because there was no one single thing that I had done that should have created all that pain for me. And because at the time, I'm a decent leader. I'm not a bad leader. I made some bad choices about some of the things that I did. And some of the things that happened, were ultimately my fault. But I didn't do anything so bad that I deserved that collective trauma. And so that was what was really hard. And I know you're the same way. Seychelle, you had something similar happen to you a little bit after me.
It's interesting because our businesses, I'm kind of like, I miss our two co-hosts because they're amazing and always bring such wisdom to the table. And for this episode today, it's kind of fun doing it with you, because our two businesses often are within 6 months to a year of each other, wherever they are. It's
amazing.
In the cycle.
I know. And it's been that way since we met.
Yeah,
honestly.
It really has.
It is literally, yeah.
yeah,
we're fairly
over
similar as leaders too.
We are. And we wanted to take some time today to share with you guys some of this, as far as like the real behind the scenes, because we've had some of you reach out over COVID that may have heard some of our stories or heard about our experiences. And sometimes you're just in the thick of it, and it's helpful to know that you're not alone, and that other people see you and hear you and are with you in it. And so we thought we might share with you, some of our things that we have learned, some of the hard things that we've been going through over the last couple of years, how we're finding a way to move forward and grow and learn and find joy, despite some of the challenges. And, I think the first thing that I have learned is that I think the phrase "misery loves company" is a piece of crap. But I do think, because I don't want someone to like just sit there and wallow with me in pain forever, right? That's a misery loves company to me. But I will say that building a tribe of people that have been through hard things and have come out on the other side can be so impactful and powerful when you are in the thick of it. Like oftentimes in the middle of hard for me, I may need like a week to sit if it's really, really bad, or 10 minutes if it's not like terrible, but like, you need a hot minute to just kind of like have your moment. But one of the best things that I think about our relationship that I have found is when you're in the middle of a really hard time, or I'm in the middle of a really hard time, we pick up the phone and call each other and say, how do I get through this? How do I move through this? What do I learn? What did you learn? What do you wish you would have done? And to have leaders that are high-minded in your world that you can make those calls to, I think really makes a huge difference to allow you to do the hard things you need to do when you're in the middle of the thick of it. And so I'm really thankful for that.
I love that. Well, and I'm thankful for that too. And I'm honestly so thankful for your friendship, Seychelle. I mean, you and I have known each other for, I don't know, 12 years, something. Yeah. I don't know. Do you remember when we met? Do you remember that?
Well, you and I have different memories because
I
for
know
some
we do.
reason,
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
meeting
What's your
you.
memory?
I remember having lunch with you at the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta, and you were wearing a really cute kind of like poofy skirt that was really cute. And you were
But I
like
don't even remember being in Atlanta. Was that for
I
a
remember
family
sitting
reunion
with you.
or?
Yeah. It was like you were visiting for family
Yeah.
reunion. And you had like just gotten into real estate, and we sat down, and it was
I don't think I
Kristen
was
on
at
our
that family
team.
reunion.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
I know
where
I
my
wasn't.
head has us. But I
Yeah.
also remember your other memory,
Well, I have a
which
better story, which is funnier. I remember we were at the Highball, which is a bowling. Well, at the time,
it's
it's a
really
bar
fun.
now,
Yeah, it was
but
a
it was a
bowling.
bowling alley and bar attached to the Alamo, and that's when it was just it was cool when they had the bowling alley
Yeah,
inside
it
of
was
it.
fun.
And you showed up with Ben Kinney, our friend Ben, and for some reason I thought you were his girlfriend. And you were just so cute. You were just darling. And I literally thought, oh, Ben must be a lot richer than I think he is. Because you were like so out of his league, right? When I met you. But then I quickly realized that you were married to Nick
Yes,
and all the things. But yeah, so that was like a dozen years ago. And I
I
think our
know.
businesses have tracked since then. So
Yeah, they've
anyway,
tracked
thank you to
similarly,
Ben or
and
whoever
just
introduced us.
yeah.
I remember that lunch, but I'm going to try to see where it was because
Yeah,
I know the lunch that you're talking about because I think
yeah.
we met with some of the like Kristen and some other people on
Uh
your
huh.
team
Uh
and
huh.
Barb. Yeah, no,
Uh
I
huh.
do remember that.
Well, and
But
Jay talked about you for years before I met you because Jay and I both started at Keller Williams within like I think he was maybe 3 years in when I started, and so we both have kind of grown up in the industry and the company together, and so it's been really fun to be a part of that, and then to get to not only have him as a dear friend and person I admire in my life, but then to get to have you too. I mean, it was just like it's like two times the fun. It was so awesome that
yeah,
you were just as
yeah,
wonderful as he is. So I found that to
yeah,
be really cool.
so great.
When I look
Yep.
back over the last couple of years, Wendy, like, so you were about 3 years ago, your team fell apart. Our team fell apart in January of 2020, right? Like, literally, I had part of my team leave, and then I went and gave a eulogy for one of my dear friends who also happened to be married to one of my salespeople the next day. And then the day after that, the other half of the team quit, which was super cool. And so, in a matter of like 3 days, I either lost the entire sales side of our organization or honestly, like buried part of it, literally,
Yeah.
in like 3 days. And so it was a really rough period. And then right after that, COVID hit a month later.
Yeah.
And I remember right after the whole team fell apart, I had agreed to do a panel conversation that we've talked about before. I did a panel conversation for our like region. We have 9,000 people in our region. And so we did like a big event over at the Cowboy Stadium. And I looked down, it was just such a brain fog. It was a matter of, between half the team leaving the eulogy and the funeral service and then the panel, it was like a 5-day period. So it was not long from one end to the other of that. And I remember I didn't even have time to prepare for the panel because I was just so in the middle of everything else and all the things you have to do. And thankfully, our operations team was like in it with me, jumped in the trenches. We all got it figured out. And the sales side, we had to completely rebuild. And I was getting ready to walk up onto stage, and I looked down at what our panel conversation was. And it was how to build a team that lasts was the name of it. Literally less than 5 days after my entire sale of our business had imploded. And I just remember, I had two amazing other people that had great businesses that were sitting up there with me. And I remember they looked at me and they said, "So Seychelle, how do you build a team that lasts?" And I like, if you could have seen me, I think my face turned hot pink and I literally just started bawling on stage in front of everyone. And I just remember going, I have no idea. And like, I am like waterworks. Like I didn't bring tissues. I was not prepared. I am literally like sobbing on stage. And like our regional director, Smokey Garrett's like, what is happening right now? I'm getting, my phone is blowing up on the side with Via and Wendy and our friend Ben Kinney and other people going, I'm getting weird text messages from people saying, "You're crying on stage right now? Like, what is happening to you?" And literally just had like the super awesome public meltdown, which was just so, so humbling and rewarding. And then we had COVID. Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
Wendy, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, well, and I relate to that. I mean, we were always the team in the market center where
Yeah.
people talked
You
about
had
us like we were the team
you had a very
where
sticky,
people
cohesive culture.
stayed very,
Yes.
very stable.
Same.
And so
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting about that is I think it's kind of like you're saying, it's kind of like you were saying, it's like, well, how did I make that happen? Was it
Yeah.
sort of random? Probably was. Yeah, it probably was somewhat random. Was I not horrible? Yes, that's probably also the case. But here we are, 3 years later,
Yeah.
and I can tell you, or in your case, I guess 2 years later, 2.5 years
Mm-hmm.
later, I can tell you that, we can all do hard things. And then, of course, everybody knows we had COVID, and Seychelle and I have rebuilt our teams, and
Mm-hmm.
I have some phenomenal people on my team now, and actually, I
Yes.
love the team that I have now, and
I do too.
I built I built it with team players. And at the end of the day, you know, when you're in it, it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard. And some people have heard me say this before, but I just remember when this gal who'd been with me for a long time, 7 years, and whose life I impacted a lot. I'd actually just given her a whole garage of furniture from like nice furniture from an Airbnb
Mm-hmm.
that we had decided not to keep as an Airbnb. And she didn't even have, she couldn't even call me. She sent me an email, and it was very hard for me. And I just sat down with Jay on the couch that night, and I just was crying, and I just said,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have a big life anymore. I want a tiny little
Mm-hmm.
life. I don't want this. It's too
Mm-hmm.
much pain. It's too much heartache. It's too much sorrow. And
And I think it's hard too,
the
Wendy,
reality
like
is,
you pour into people, like as a leader, I know we say it's business, but I will tell you, when you care about your people, when you love them, when you
yes,
have helped them pay
yes,
for back taxes that they owe, or help them with their down payment for their first home, or gifted them vacations, or
yeah,
surprised them with all sorts of other things that have massively
100%,
impacted their life, to all of a sudden have that relationship like sometimes ripped apart. And
ripped, yeah,
hopefully it's always a good exit. And I feel like you and I both have had a track record up until this point of actually having pretty decent like exits, and we're on amicable terms and everything's good. Then all of a sudden you go through this period where it just feels like you're just ripping things, Velcro, just ripping apart. That it's hard to let go of that relationship. And even though you're like not in a good
yes,
space with them,
yeah,
it's hard then to like tell yourself not to care about them, or to tell yourself that it's a
yeah,
different relationship now than it was, and you can't pick up the phone and call them in the same way. And so there is a
yeah,
mourning period that I think I went through.
yeah.
I think you did too with some of those relationships, because it's hard not to care.
Yeah, well, and it's hard as a leader because you're always on the outside in a way, because you're the
Mm-hmm.
boss,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I are both people, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just really tough because sometimes you'll be on social media and you'll see every single person that
Yeah.
was on your real estate team in
Yeah. Oh yeah.
2019 together at an event.
Uh-huh.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
That's honestly for me, it's just so hard to see that
Yeah.
because I am a person, you know,
Yeah.
and I am a thick skinned person, but underneath the thick skin, I'm still tender.
Yeah.
And so that's
Mm-hmm.
it's just hard to see, and it's just a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of being a leader. You don't always get to be the buddy of everybody
Yeah.
that's on your team. So
You
yeah.
made a comment of sitting on the couch of, sometimes I think a lot of leaders resonate with this of the, do I just want to tear it all down? Do I just want to break it all apart? Do I just want to break it all down and just keep it small, keep it tiny, keep it where it's safe and I can't get hurt again, or I don't have to have the stress or the responsibility or the liability or the accountability?
Mhm.
What made you at a certain point willing to change that and rebuild again?
Yeah, well, so I would say that I very much relate to that. I really was like, I I want to, and I am somewhat still in that mentality. I don't think I ever
Hmm.
really got
I'm
back to
still
that. Like, I
recovering.
want to have,
Yeah.
I don't want to have, I want to have massive growth. I think I'm pretty clear now that if someone enters my world and they want that, I'm willing to invest in them and invest in that. But I'm just not, I'm just not going to necessarily do it myself. We're still growing. I mean, we just hired 4 people last week, so it's not like we're not growing at all. But I would say we've been very, very slow and stable these last couple of years. And it's just in the real estate industry and all the industries the last years. There's a lot of turnover, so it's not like we've had no
Hmm.
turnover in our on our team or organization, but we haven't had
Hmm.
much, honestly. So
I will
yeah,
say it
that's
allowed.
purposeful.
I've had two major like opportunities in the last 2.5 years since we've been rebuilding. The first one was for us. We had zero. What we had like one salesperson who we had literally like had the funeral for her husband. She was our one salesperson that we still had. So she was mourning, but we had all of the operations expense and then none of the salespeople. And
Mm-hmm.
so a big motivator for me to rebuild was we had a phenomenal operations team. And I
Mm-hmm.
was bound and determined, like hell or high water, I'm keeping all of our people. And we're not
Yeah, of
laying a single
course.
person off. And so that was a motivation for me to build immediately, quickly, aggressively to figure that out. And we had a lot of really good potential people in the pipeline coming in, but none of them had been up and trained yet. The second thing, though, that I have learned over the last probably 6 months
Well,
to
can
a
I just jump in
year.
on that
Yeah,
because I think first of all that's so important. The operations side of your team is. Um, I think some people think it's not as important as the sales team. It's equally as important, if not more important,
it is.
than the sales team
It's the heartbeat of our
because it's the
organization.
back of the house. Yeah, it's like if you think
It's
about a restaurant, the people that are in the back preparing the food, making sure that the quality is there, making sure that the customer has the quality, and then you've got the salespeople on the front who are selling everything, selling the food to the customers in the restaurant. Um, if you have a bad waiter and the food is still amazing, you're probably going to come back to that restaurant. But if
right.
you go one time and the food is really good, and the next time you go it's really bad, the next time you go it's really bad, you're probably not going to come back.
No,
And so
that's a
that
great
that that
analogy.
operational, yeah, the operational kind of back end of the house is just really important. And I made the mistake of when my operations person left. She actually got her. I was really happy for her. She got her dream job. I decided, and some salespeople were leaving. I
Right.
decided to not hire that that key role, that operations director. And it was a good thing because it allowed me to get our incredible person that we have now, who's actually going to be moving into another role for us. And honestly, she's been a huge part of our stability and our rock these last couple of years. But that was a mistake I made, was not filling that position immediately, that operations director. And I think people really underestimate the importance of that position, especially on a real estate team.
I think you are able to pretend to not pretend in the word like that. I mean that you can't do it. I mean I think you're able to think operationally, probably at a little bit higher level than I am, and so you can fake that longer, which allowed you more bandwidth not to have to replace it sooner. I am very clear for me personally that I am a relationship based person. I like building business. I need to be on the relationship side of things, and I can flex on a strategic level, but my energy level or my stamina on that side is, I think, much shorter than yours is. And so for me, if that same situation would have happened, I would have had to hire much faster because the failure in the organization for me to be in that role would have been much faster than I think what yours was. I think you could hack it longer. And
Well, I
so
also
that was,
had, I mean,
yeah.
Lee Bogar.
Oh
She
yeah,
stepped
she's
in
awesome.
for me,
Yeah.
and even though she's not, she just has an amazing mix of weird. people and analytical
Yeah.
skills. But she was able to come in and kind of pinch hit,
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
few
she
months for
really
me, which was
was.
really good.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think about
yeah, she's
like
awesome.
Kristen and Erica and Maria on our team, kind of our OGs. We've been together a really long time. And I think like I always tell them,
Hmm.
I'm like, I would die without you guys. Like literally, you are the literal spine of our organization that keeps everything in alignment and moving forward and put together. Like without them, we would be majorly up a creek, because they're just, their brains are everything that mine is not, which is so awesome to
Yeah,
have somebody that
yeah.
compliments you in that way. I think something over the last year that you and I have really learned is like, so you can have business failures, but we've also had some like major personal things that we have had to reassess priorities, reevaluate, that have made us like, I mean, Quinn being in virtual school for a year and a half, like that, I mean, you were homeschooling for a long time, like that changes your world. And then layered on top of that, us really having to work with the decline of my dad's health and sell my parents' house with all the flooding that they had, and then move them in with us, and then move them out, and then move him into memory care, and like all of those things that you like, that were not on my vision board for 2020, 21, or 22, that just have a way of coming in and forcing you to make space. I think about like over the past 2 years, how freaking hard that has been on like the business, on the marriage, on the relationships, on friendships. And I think, I think back of just how life sometimes has a funny way of slowing you down and forcing you to literally stop and assess everything. And I'm learning, I'm still in active learning on these. I'm not there, but I'm really actively learning that it is okay to actually have my business look different than other people's. And I think
Hmm.
you did that beautifully when you had little bitties, and you've done that again now. You've reinvented it a couple times. And this for me, I used to just have endless amounts of energy, and I could work myself into the ground if I had to, because I had endless amounts of energy. And now with that energy having to be divided between work, daughter, marriage, parents, estate planning, like all of these things, I don't have unlimited amounts of time and energy to be able to spend on those things. And it's really forcing me to reprioritize, and then to give myself permission and the comfort and the peace that I can do that and still have a really great, profitable, awesome business and amazing humans, and we can all grow. But it really like driving towards that, like a life that I want.
Hmm.
And what do I envision
Yeah.
it? Not because society or our team or other business owners have it a certain way, so I have to do it that way too. And I think getting into business at 22, I just sort of was like, well, this is what somebody else is doing. Let's do that.
Of
And I was
course. Yeah.
comparing,
Well, we're all,
my outsides to their insides.
yeah. Well, and we're all models based people. All of us on the podcast
Yeah,
are models
yeah.
based people. And that's actually a good thing. But I would say, Seychelle, first of all, you are doing great. You are doing
Thank you.
really, really great. And for those of you out there that are struggling, that are going through something hard, you're doing great too. You really are. You are doing great. And sometimes we just need somebody in our life that we respect and love to tell them that they
Yeah.
are doing great and you are enough and you are doing enough. And that's okay, because success can be on your terms. Success is
Yes.
what you
Yes.
want. And success looks different for different people.
Yeah.
And it looks different for different people at different stages of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you honestly, Seychelle, you didn't get to have your roaring 20s. You jumped in and helped your family with your business. So you didn't really
Mm-hmm.
get that. And you started your own family, and honestly,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily fair, the hand that you were dealt, and you've really played it beautifully. And what I love about you is that finally, after about 17 years of doing the right thing by everybody in your life, you're choosing yourself. So I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I think I was slower to look. How do I phrase it? I think it was easier when acts of service are your love language. It's been easier to serve everybody else. And I think doing the internal work, I turned 40 this year, big 4-0. I feel like my 20s were like, who are you? Your 30s are like, okay, I know who I am, and I'm going to I've got endless amounts of energy and time, and I'm going to do it all, right? Like, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too in your 30s. And in my 40s, I feel like I'm in this mode of coming into my 40th year going, what do I want? I've spent 17 years, to your point, serving what everybody else wants. And Nick and I are really getting to have exciting conversations about what we want. Quinn will be, college age in 10 years. So we have our 40s to really spend focusing on what we want. How do we want to build our life? Just because somebody else has built it one way doesn't mean that's what we need. And how can we do it on our terms? How can we spend more time at the lake house? How can we spend more time playing and bringing joy and having fun and building that into our life? And I think I'm also learning that my 40s have to be asking for help more. I'm used to being Superman, and you just throw it on your back and you keep going. And, I'm learning to ask for help. And I actually have to build systems around asking for help because it's not something I naturally do. So that is a system I'm working every week on building because that's not a muscle I naturally do, is ask. So that's something I'm having to build.
I think we're all like that. Yeah, we're all like that. I think everybody relates to that. I mean, I'm not the same way. I'm not like that either. I'm going to be a terrible nurturer when my husband's older, and he's not going to be that great at it either, probably. So we'll see what happens there. But, So anybody who's out there, I just want you to know that, I think the older you get, the more you understand this. That is, life isn't about always moving up and forward. Life is full of hard things. It just is. And whether or not you've had those hard things happen to you, you need to understand it's just a matter of time. And none of us is guaranteed another day. We just aren't. And so what Seychelle is telling us is, we have to move through the hard things with our thick skin, but with our tender underbelly as well. And never forget to take care of ourselves at the same time, because success is what we make it, even though we're always dealing with the hard things.
And if you don't have a you at the end of the day because you have burnt out or you haven't taken care of your body or your mind or your soul, then you don't get to enjoy the rest of the journey because there is no destination on this earth, at least. And so, taking the time to slow down and to ask the questions we were asking, an awesome person, Nicole Davison, and I were having a call the other day, and she was just going through leadership questions, and I really encouraged her to go back and ask the question first of what do I want my world to look like? What do I want my life to look like? And then how can my business serve me? And I don't mean it in like a selfish way of like, oh, you guys all like do my bidding, but I mean like, how can my business really help empower me to live my best life and put me in my wheelhouse for what I love and do best, and then create opportunities for others in that? There's freedom and excitement in that for me.
Oh, I love that.
Freedom and
I love that. In fact, I was just teaching that. It's a part of Quantum Leap, which is a class that was written by Gary Keller.
Awesome class.
I was teaching that to my team this morning, which is this idea of starting with yourself and your personal mission and your personal values, and taking the time to truly understand who you are and what's important to you. And then figuring out a career that aligns with that. And for some of us, it could be starting a business, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who are aligned with other people's vision and mission. And that's a wonderful thing. That's absolutely a wonderful thing. But understanding why you're on the planet, and then understanding that you're going to spend the majority of your time at work. And so aligning your work with who you are. And then on top of that, whether you're inside a business or you're running your own business, is as you grow in your leadership, help other people understand that as well. So you're sort of giving back in a people way, based on your mission and your values, and whatever that looks like to you. And then the fourth step to that is really, as you grow your business and you grow your wealth, you're giving back financially to things that aligned with your vision and your mission and your values. And that, so honestly, that's a big secret to the happy life, because understanding that there's lots of hard stuff thrown in there, right? There's lots of hard stuff. So,
but you can, I think, for any of you going through hard times right now, or maybe coming out of them, is, to remember too, that even in the hard times, there's joy and there's light and there's opportunity, but you have to really look for it and be willing to be open-minded for it. And it's okay sometimes to be in a hard spot, but also have great amounts of pain and great amounts of joy at the same time. The older I get, the more I realize that those are not mutually exclusive. And so, we just want to encourage all of you, as you're coming in and building your worlds, to know that you're not alone, and there are great things coming for you should you choose to pursue them. And, we're always here. So you've got friends in us, and I know Via and Sarah feel the same way. And we want to see you build that big business and that even bigger life. And sometimes it's messy, but I'll tell you, it's worth it. It is worth it.
That's right. It's absolutely worth it. Go out there, guys.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.